The rain hammered the windshield like it had a grudge, blurring the neon sign of the old diner into a smear of pink and blue. Evan Harlan gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles whitening against the worn leather, as the wipers slapped back and forth in futile rhythm. 20 years since he'd fled Ridge Valley, Maine, and here he was, crawling back for a high school reunion like some masochistic fool chasing ghosts. He killed the engine outside the community hall, the downpour muffling the bass thump of classic rock leaking from inside. Stepping out, water soaked his boots instantly, but it was the silhouette in the doorway that stopped him cold. Broad shoulders, that same cocky tilt to the jaw. Hunter Kane, the boy who'd shoved him into lockers, whispered slurs in the halls, and shattered whatever fragile sense of self Evan had scraped together as a scared kid just trying to survive. Hunter's eyes locked on him through the veil of rain, and for a split second, the world narrowed to that gaze, not mocking this time, but soft, almost aching, like Evan was the horizon Hunter had spent years chasing. Noah's heart slammed against his ribs as he crossed the parking lot, the gravel crunching underfoot like brittle bones. He hadn't planned on coming, hadn't answered the emails from the reunion committee, but something, maybe the bottle of bourbon half empty on his passenger seat, or the ache of turning 35 alone in his Seattle apartment, had dragged him east across the country. Ridge Valley hadn't changed much. Same sagging porches on clapboard houses, same salt-tinged air off the Atlantic, same ghosts lurking in every shadow. The community hall squatted on the edge of town, its faded banner reading Ridge Valley High, Class of '05. Homecoming heroes flapping like a tired flag of surrender. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of cheap cologne, fried appetizers, and nostalgia laced with desperation. Laughter erupted in clusters, former cheerleaders air-kissing, ex-jocks slapping backs over tales of glory days that had long since curdled into mediocrity. Evan hovered near the punch bowl, nursing a plastic cup of spiked fruit slush, his dark hair still damp from the rain, curling at the nape of his neck. He scanned the room, half hoping to blend into the wood-paneled walls, half dreading the inevitable collisions. It happened faster than he expected. A hand clamped on his shoulder, firm but not bruising, and a voice, deeper now, gravel rough from years unspoken. Cut through the din, Noah? Holy shit, it's really you. He turned, and there was Hunter Kane, up close and inescapably real. The boy who'd pinned him against the bleachers after football practice, his breath hot and hateful as he hissed, "Freak," was gone. In his place stood a man pushing 40, his once golden hair dulled to a sandy brown, threaded with silver at the temples. Fine lines creased the corners of his blue eyes, and his frame had softened just enough around the edges to speak of desk jobs and late nights. But the height was still there, the easy athletic grace. He wore a navy button-down rolled to the elbows, sleeves hugging forearms roped with faded tattoos, anchors and waves, remnants of a sailor's youth he'd abandoned for something steadier. Hunter's smile faltered, then bloomed into something tentative, almost shy. "You look good. Like, really good." Noah's throat tightened, words tangling like fishing line. He wanted to shrug it off, to summon the armor he'd forged in the years since, running a cozy bookstore in Capitol Hill, Seattle, surrounded by dog-eared paperbacks and the quiet company of patrons who saw him as the thoughtful guy with the wry recommendations, not the target of hallway taunts. But the past had teeth, and they sank in now. "Hunter," he managed, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd be off captaining some Fortune 500 ship or whatever." A low chuckle escaped Hunter, but it held no edge, just a weary echo. "Nah, life had other plans. I'm back in town now, running my dad's old garage. Keeps the hands busy." His gaze dropped, tracing the rim of Noah's cup, then flicked back up, lingering a beat too long on his mouth. "Listen, can we talk somewhere quieter?" The request hung between them, fragile as sea glass. Noah's pulse thrummed, a mix of fury and something dangerously like curiosity. Why now? Why him? But the room's clamor pressed in. The clink of glasses, a burst of laughter from the dance floor where couples swayed to a warped rendition of Wonderwall, and he nodded, jerking his head toward the side door. Outside, the rain had eased to a mist, cloaking the world in silver haze. They leaned against the brick wall, shoulders inches apart, the night air cool and briny. Hunter lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating the sharp planes of his face before offering the pack. Evans shook his head, arms crossed like a barrier. "I owe you an apology," Hunter said finally, exhaling smoke in a slow plume that curled toward the stars. A big one. For everything. Back then, I was a scared kid in a smaller world, lashing out at what I didn't understand, at what terrified me about myself. His voice cracked on the last word, raw as an exposed nerve. Evan stared at him, the words slicing through 2 decades of carefully built walls. Terrified about himself? The implication landed like a rogue wave, pulling him under. In high school, Hunter had been the golden boy, quarterback, homecoming king, the straight-arrow son of a lobster fisherman who preached fire and brimstone Sundays at the local Baptist church. Noah, with his quiet sketches in the margins of notebooks and the secret poetry tucked in his locker, had been the easy mark. The shoves in the locker room, the graffiti on his truck, fag, it had all felt personal, a vendetta against the boy who dared to exist as he was. You mean the part where you outed me to the whole school? Noah's tone was even, but inside, the old hurt bloomed fresh, a bruise under scar tissue. Or the time you and your buddies left me bleeding on the gravel after the game. Because I've got apologies stacked up like cordwood for those. Hunter winced, pinching the bridge of his nose. All of it. God, Noah, I wake up some nights still seeing your face that day by the pier. The way you looked at me, not even angry, just broken. I wanted to say something then, but I was too chicken shit. My dad would have disowned me. The town. It chews up anyone who doesn't fit the mold. The mist thickened, beating on Noah's lashes as he searched Hunter's face for lies. There were none, just the haunted flicker of a man reckoning with his own wreckage. Seattle had taught Evan reinvention. The grind of opening harbor reads, the tentative dates with baristas and artists that fizzled into polite goodbyes, the therapy sessions where he unpacked the shrapnel of youth. But here, under the main sky, the pieces shifted. Why tell me now? Evan asked, softer than he intended. Hunter stubbed out his cigarette, turning fully to face him. The porch light caught the stubble shadowing his jaw, the faint scar above his lip from a long-ago fight. Because life's short, and I spent too long running from it. Divorced last year. Yeah, that happened. Kids are with their mom in Portland. And when I saw your name on the list, it hit me. You were the one thing I got wrong, Noah. The one that got away before I even knew what I was chasing. The words settled heavy, stirring something dormant in Noah's chest. A warmth he'd long mistaken for heartburn. He thought of his empty apartment overlooking the Sound, the stack of unread manuscripts on his nightstand, the way he'd scroll through Grindr profiles late at night, swiping left on echoes of his younger self. Hunter stepped closer, close enough that Evan could smell the smoke and sandalwood on him, the heat radiating like a confession. I don't know if forgiveness is on the table, Evan murmured, but his body betrayed him, leaning in just a fraction. But maybe. Coffee. Tomorrow. Before I head back west. Hunter's smile broke wide, genuine, lighting his eyes like dawn over the bay. Yeah, coffee sounds like a start. They exchanged numbers under the awning, fingers brushing in the exchange, a spark that jolted through Evan like live wire. As he drove back to the motel, the rain picking up again, he replayed the moment. Hunter's gaze, not as predator but pilgrim, seeking absolution in the ruins of what they'd both lost. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with memories, the sting of salt water on split lips, the thrill of a forbidden glance in the chem lab, the ache of unspoken wants. Morning broke gray and reluctant, the motel coffee bitter as regret. Evan met Hunter at the Pierside Cafe, the one with the creaky wooden floors and lobster roll specials that hadn't changed since they were kids. Hunter was already there, 2 mugs steaming on the table, his hair tousled by the wind off the water. He stood when Evan approached, pulling out a chair with an old-world courtesy that felt both foreign and fitting. They talked haltingly at first, surface schemes over the years. Evan shared the bookstore, the way Seattle's fog mirrored his own drift toward solitude. Hunter spoke of the marriage that crumbled under the weight of his silences, the therapy he'd started after the divorce, the quiet coming out to his sister over Thanksgiving turkey. She hugged me, he said, stirring sugar into his coffee with unnecessary focus. Said she'd always known. Called me an idiot for waiting so long. Evan laughed, a real one, surprising himself. Idiot's one word for it. The conversation deepened as the morning wore on, tides shifting from recriminations to revelations. Hunter admitted to watching Noah's sparse social media, the posts of rainy day readings, the occasional photo of him with a rescue dog named Finn, all wiry energy and loyal eyes. You built something real, Hunter said, voice low. I'm proud of you, even if I don't deserve to be. Pride. The word landed soft, unexpected. Evan traced the grain of the tabletop, scarred from decades of elbows and arguments. You know, I used to write about you. Not by name, but the shadow in every story. The bully who became the ghost. Hunter's hand inched across the table, stopping short of Noah's. What happens to the ghost? In the good endings? He redeems himself. Shows up when it counts. They lingered until the lunch crowd pushed them out, walking the pier in companionable silence. Gulls wheeled overhead, cries sharp as memories. At the end, where the lighthouse beam swept lazy arcs over the foam, Hunter turned to him. Stay another day? There's a bonfire tonight at Haven Point Beach. Old classmates, but we could skip the crowd. Just us. Evan hesitated, the pull of Seattle warring with the gravity here. His flight was booked, his life a neat stack of obligations. But Hunter's eyes held the sea's depth, promising depths unexplored. One more day, he agreed, the words tasting like risk and renewal. That evening, the beach stretched dark and endless, the bonfire crackling like a heartbeat. They sat on a driftwood log, knees brushing, passing a thermos of spiked cider. The flames painted Hunter's face in gold and shadow, softening the hard edges of regret. Stories flowed easier now. Hunter's first fumbling crush on a summer deckhand, the nights he'd lain awake in his childhood bed, staring at the ceiling beams as if answers hid in the knots. Evan shared fragments of Seattle, the underground poetry slams where he'd read verses veiled in metaphor, the one-night stand with a musician that left him hollow, the quiet pride of recommending a book that changed someone's night. As the fire died to embers, Hunter's hand found Noah's, tentative at first, then sure. Their fingers laced, calluses rough against smooth skin, a map of divergent paths converging. I don't want this to end tomorrow, Hunter whispered, breath warm against Noah's ear. Evan turned, their faces inches apart, the world narrowing to the salt on Hunter's lips, the vulnerability in his gaze. The kiss was inevitable, slow and searching, tasting of cider and second chances. It deepened, hands roaming with the urgency of years denied. Hunter's palm cupping Noah's jaw, Noah's fingers threading through Hunter's hair, pulling him closer. They broke apart, gasping, foreheads pressed, the ocean's roar a counterpoint to their ragged breaths. I can't promise easy, Evan said, voice husky. The past doesn't just vanish. I know. Hunter's thumb traced Noah's lower lip, eyes fierce with intent. But I'm all in, if you'll let me try. They made love that night in Hunter's small apartment above the garage, creaky floorboards, the hum of the bay in the distance. It was tentative at edges, fervent at core, Hunter's body strong and yielding, mapping Noah's scars with lips and whispers of sorry and more. Evan arched under him, the weight of balm to old wounds, their rhythms sinking like waves to shore. Afterward, tangled in sheets scented with motor oil and sea air, Evan traced the tattoo on Hunter's chest, a compass rose, needle pointing true north. For you, Evan murmured, half asleep. Hunter pulled him closer. Always was. But dawn brought cracks in the idyll. Noah's phone buzzed with a text from his assistant at the store, a burst pipe, chaos waiting in Seattle. He dressed quietly, watching Hunter sleep, the man's face slack with peace a van hadn't seen since high school. Slipping out, he left a note. This isn't goodbye. Just a pause. Call me. The drive to the airport was a blur of coastal highway, pines blurring into regret. Back in Seattle, the rain welcomed him like an old frenemy, drumming on the bookstore's tin roof as he mopped up the flood. Days blurred into routine, shelving books, recommending memoirs on resilience, ignoring the hollow in his chest. Hunter's texts came steady. Photos of greasy engines, sunsets over the bay, a simple miss your voice. Weeks turned to a month, the distance a slow erosion. Then, the call came late one night, Hunter's voice thick with something shattered. My dad's dying, Noah. Pancreatic. He wants to see me. Us. God, I don't know. Evan booked the flight that hour, heart pounding with a mix of dread and determination. Ridge Valley in autumn was a riot of crimson leaves, the air crisp as judgment. He found Hunter at the hospital, slumped in a vinyl chair outside the room, eyes red-rimmed. He knows, Hunter said flatly, when Evan sat beside him. About me. About us. Found my phone, saw the messages. Noah's stomach knotted. And Hunter laughed, bitter. Called me every name in the book. Said I was poison, dragging the family down. Then he asked for the morphine. The vigil stretched, beeps of monitors, the sterile scent of regret. Evan held Hunter's hand through it, thumb rubbing circles on his knuckles, whispering stories of second acts in literature to drown the silence. When the end came, quiet as a held breath, Hunter broke, sobs racking his frame as Evan pulled him into the hallway, cradling him like fragile glass. Funeral was a somber affair, black suits under gray skies, eulogies laced with half-truths. Hunter's sister, Lena, pulled Evan aside after, her grip fierce. He lights up talking about you. Don't let the old man's poison stick. Back at the apartment, grief turned to fire. They fell into each other with desperate hunger, Hunter's hands bruising Noah's hips, Noah's teeth marking Hunter's shoulder, a reclaiming amid the ruins. You're my north, Hunter gasped, burying his face in Noah's neck. Don't leave. I won't, Evan promised, meaning it bone deep. But shadows lingered. A week later, over coffee at the pier, Hunter's phone rang, his ex, voice shrill through the speaker. The kids heard from Grandpa's nurse. About you and that guy. They're asking questions, Hunter. What the hell? The call ended in accusations, Hunter's face paling. She'll use this against me in court. Custody. Noah's world tilted. We knew it wouldn't be simple. Hunter's eyes searched his, wild with fear. But I can't lose you. Not now. The betrayal came swift, unbidden. A letter from Lena slipped under Noah's motel door while Hunter attended a family meeting. Inside, a photo. Hunter and his ex at the lawyer's office, her hand on his arm, their heads bent close. A note. Saw this. He's playing you, Noah. Always the charmer. Run while you can. Hard in his throat, Evan confronted him at the garage, oil stains on Hunter's jeans, wrench forgotten in his fist. Is it true? You going back to her? Hunter's face crumpled. God, no. It's strategy for the kids. Show stability. But she's twisting it. Stability? Noah's voice rose, cracking. Like the lies you told back then. The ones that left me bleeding. The wrench clattered to the concrete. Hunter stepped forward, hands outstretched. This is different. I'm different. I love you, Noah. Swear it. The words hung, a lifeline or a noose. Evan backed away, rain starting again, blurring the lines between then and now. I need time. He fled to Seattle, the flight a cocoon of turmoil. Days bled into weeks, books unread, sleep fractured by dreams of blue eyes and broken promises. Hunter's voicemails piled up. Please, poetry, silence. Then, the package arrived at the store, a battered journal, pages filled with Hunter's scrawl, sketches of Noah's face from memory, entries chronicling the ache of absence, confessions of a love forged in regret's fire. Tucked inside, a ticket to Portland, and a note. Meet me halfway. Let me prove it. Evan stood at the window, city lights fracturing like tears, the compass in his chest pointing east. Freedom wasn't erasure, he realized. It was choosing the scars that healed. He packed a bag, heart steady for the first time in years. The halfway point was a rainy diner off I-5, vinyl booths and pie under glass. Hunter waited in the corner, hollow-cheeked but hopeful, rising as Evan entered. No words at first, just the crush of embrace. Hunter's sob muffled in Noah's shoulder. I'm sorry, Hunter whispered, pulling back to frame Noah's face. For all of it. The past, the fear. But I'm here. All of me. Evan kissed him then, fierce and forgiving, the diner fading to irrelevance. We start now. No ghosts. Months unfolded like chapters, weekends shuttling between coasts, Hunter fighting for shared custody with a lawyer who nodded at their clasped hands. Noah's bookstore hosted readings on identity, Hunter in the front row, his presence a quiet anchor. They bought a fixer-upper in Haven Point, salt air and second chances, painting walls blue as forgotten seas. One evening, bonfire on the beach, kids in tow, wary at first, then warming with morays and stories. Evan leaned into Hunter, the flames dancing in their eyes. You were right, he murmured. The ghost redeems himself. Hunter's arm tightened around him, lips brushing his temple. And the one who got away? He came back. In the quiet after, as stars pricked the velvet sky, Evan felt the weight lift, not gone, but shared. Love wasn't perfection. It was compassion carved from cruelty, identity reclaimed in the arms of the once unforgivable. And in that, they were whole.